Well, let's now bring you the interview segment for today. Our focus is looking at the price modulation mechanism put in place by the federal government through the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, which has just announced a new retail price band for all marketers across the country. In a circular dated July the 1st, the downstream regulator says all marketers are now expected to sell petrol within the price range of 140 naira 80 kobo and 143 naira 80 kobo. The circular further stated that the following establishment of a monthly price band, which the petroleum marketers are now expected to sell PMS at the retail stations, the new price is based on the existing price regime. Well, joining me now via Skype to discuss this development and much more is the managing partner, Zenera consultant Mecca Olowola. Good to have you on the show today. Now, let's talk about the price modulation mechanism we've had put in place by the federal government through the PPPRA. We've seen a downward revision where prices have dropped as low as 121 naira, and now we have an upward revision once again with the price at about 140 naira to 143 naira 80 kobo. What do you make of the development so far?
So basically, it's reflective of what we're expecting when you run the price modulation regime, which was announced on the 19th of March by PPPRA. The market forces would henceforth determine the prices of petroleum products, and PPPRA will set up, a band that will be reflective of that. And oil marketers are now allowed to import products. So what we've seen is the pump price reflective of what the international, global crude oil prices have been. So when they came up with the regime, we saw a downward movement from 145 to 125 naira per liter. On the 1st of April, there was another downward review from 125 to 123. Recall at that time oil prices were at the lowest in the history of the universe, trading below $20 per barrel. May, there was no movement, we had it there. And then June, it came down from 121.50 kobo. It went up from 121.50 kobo to 123.50 kobo. And now we're seeing it, at the band between 140 and 143. So what we think it's happening is oil prices have started to ramp up. So Brent crude is trading at $42 per barrel now. There's a pressure on foreign exchange for Nigeria, and then so you're going to see crude oil prices go up, and naturally the pump price is going to go up as well. That's our view and our take on this.
Well, as we see demand also increasing, like you've rightly mentioned, we're going to see the prices go a little higher. But do you think we've had enough of sensitization on the part of the populace, the consumers who are buying the petrol? Because at the end of the day, they just think this is the working of the government and this is not the right time to increase petrol. And enough of the talk of fuel subsidy. It's cliche at this point in time. We cannot sustain that. Your take on that?
So you're very correct, and that's what is leading to NLC rejecting, this price hike. There's not enough education. We need to over-communicate, if there's any such word, right? Especially when the other indicators are tending southward, right? So Nigeria currently has existential stagflation, right? Which means we have persistent high inflation combined with high unemployment rates, right? And stagnancy in demand for the country's economy, right? So right now, the Minister of Labor says they suspect the unemployment rate is going to hit 33.5% this year. We have inflation at double digits. This week, Moody's and Fitch reduced banks lending forecast from 14% of last year to 2.5% this year, and have warned of serious FX, foreign exchange shortages. Now, this is the environment that the average Nigerian is operating within. So when you then impose an additional, 16.4% cost burden on the consumers, you're going to find reactions like this. So even though we understand the fundamentals and what is driving the market, but the average person on the street needs to understand it, right? In very plain terms, because, there's serious challenges, across pervasive, challenges across all sectors affecting everybody, right? We think that, the unemployment rate is going to go as high as, 40%, not even the 33% that's been touted by Labour, the Labour minister. So when you juxtapose this price regime within that context, you then see that the reaction coming from the people or Nigeria Labour Congress is natural. Now, what should government do? Is that point that you mentioned, which is education.
Taking a look at that reality that you've raised, if we truly remove subsidy and we leave the prices to be largely determined by the market forces, the impact on the man on the street, the average consumer of petroleum products, is going to be quite harsh. And we don't necessarily have enough of internal cushions to manage all of the shocks. So once again, we go back to the conversation of leaving it to the market forces. But in the short term, what's the expectation now from government in terms of utilizing the oil receipts we've had so far, what we are likely to still have for the rest of this year, and have much more strategic investment in diversifying the economy? We cannot take away the value of oil at this point in time. The level of investment is still requires, but we still need to know how to properly, strategically invest. Your take on this?
What we need to learn is how to hold government responsible, right, for their actions, right? The question is, yes, why should the average man on the street bear the burden of this adjustment? Why isn't there an efficient transportation system? Why isn't there a good healthcare delivery program, right? Why are there no palliatives? Look at, what went down during COVID, right? All the monies, the donations that were made during COVID, how have those been administered? They are still in CBN TSA account, and some of are still, with the Accountant General of the Federation, the 5 bank accounts that you open. What has happened to those monies that have been set aside, donated by good-spirited people, to use, to ameliorate the suffering of people during COVID? Those are questions we need to ask, because to say that you wouldn't allow market forces to determine, prices of refined petroleum products in its entirety is actually injurious to the man on the street in the long term, because it's their money that are being pillaged right now by the politicians. Now, also, that guy on the street, is he really getting the fuel at that pump price? Apart from Lagos, Abuja, and maybe Port Harcourt,
compliance level has been exactly.
Yes, how much are those? Is that man on the street accessing the product in the first instance? So those are questions we need to ask. In the areas where they have been liberalized and deregulated, right? What is happening? You find an alternative. You go to, there will be price wars, and then you can take advantage of things like that. So I think we need to sit down, look at this in totality, discontinue the price equalization fund mechanism and stuff like that.
Mecca, right? Now wrapping up conversations in just about a minute and a half, wrap up your thoughts now. Let's talk about compliance, the oversight function of regulatory agencies to ensure that whatever adjustments we have is truly reflective, and then we have fairness in the market. That's on one hand. And then on the other hand, we still have to deal with the issue of processing, of refining petrol. We still largely have to import, and this has to reflect in the cost that we have to pay for it. So at this point in time as well, what's your take on our level of refineries and how to just bring down the cost of petrol a little more realistically down?
Okay, so both questions can be answered by improving the state of refining capacity, right? So, but the beat, about regulatory compliance, is a myth, is a mirage in Nigeria. Yeah, it's not possible, right? Okay, so look at how many employees we have in these regulatory agencies and how effective they can be. That is not possible. What you can do is to ensure that the market is such that you don't need, excessive, regulation. Go and do whatever we can, right, to make sure that Nigeria has adequate refining capacity.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
That's all we need to do.
Well, this is where we'll just have to wrap up our conversation. Thank you very much for your time, Mecca Alowola, managing consultant and partner with Zenera Consulting. And this is where we'll just have to draw the curtains on this edition of Business Week. Many thanks for watching so far. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm David Alabi.